All right. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are today. It's wonderful to have you all as part of our webinar. My name is Lauren Abda. I'm the founder of Branch Food. We are the host and organizer for our webinar today. For those of you that don't know us, Branch Food is a launchpad for food innovation and one of the largest communities of food industry stakeholders at this point worldwide. At Branch Food, we work to connect all corners of the food industry by way of events that help entrepreneurs both develop their network and become more educated on how to launch and grow and scale food-related business successfully. The second thing we do is offer corporations consulting services that help provide access to new revenue streams, insights into the innovation community, and collaboration with emerging companies that may add value to their businesses in different ways. And then lastly, we support companies seeking funding through our sister company, Branch Venture Group, which is an angel investment network dedicated to funding early stage food businesses, including consumer product brands, as well as food tech and ag tech companies. And we're thrilled to have Kyle and TrueUp as one of our portfolio companies with Branch Venture Group, and have been thrilled to support his work and the great work of the team over the last few years. Since our start in 2013, we've worked with over 900 businesses, big and small, invested over $4 million in early stage startups, and hosted over 230 events, which is a lot of events. But we're honored to be doing this work, and you can learn more about all of it at branchfood.com and branchventuregroup.com. So today, it's my pleasure to introduce you more completely to Kyle Barnholt, the co-founder and CEO of TrueUp, a platform transforming trade spend management and deductions processing for consumer product brands. Before founding TrueUp, Kyle spent over a decade at Hain Celestial in roles spanning retailer HQ sales, distributor management, and leading national sales teams. He later transitioned to a general manager role with full P&L responsibility, overseeing trade spend, profitability, and budgetary delivery. So he knows well the trials and tribulations of trade spend and deductions, and really used a lot of that insight to develop TrueUp, which he'll share more about today in this webinar. For specialty CPG brands, TrueUp provides an automated platform for clear trade spend visibility and efficient deduction management. Unlike the system today, TrueUp delivers real-time insights and actionable data to help brands optimize profitability and focus on growth. Kyle, we're thrilled to have you. Thank you for helping us provide this great content to the Branch Food community. For those of you on the call, as you know, this is a webinar, so we're happy to take questions while Kyle is presenting. I will gather them, and then I'll return towards the end of the hour to facilitate Q&A with Kyle and ask a lot of the questions that have come through the chat and have been prepared from all of you. So with that, Kyle, over to you, and thank you again.
Lauren, thanks so much. Really appreciate it. I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can dive right in. All right. Welcome and thank you so much for joining us this morning. Excited to jump into this topic of trade spend and deduction management to really unlock profitability in your business, drive the growth that you're hoping to deliver with your brand, and get more of your products into the hands of the consumers, which of course is our primary goal as a CPG brand. So just real quick on the agenda, we'll talk about deductions kind of from a high level. We'll also drill into some data points to make sure you've got some benchmarks to be thinking about as you're doing your planning and forecasting. And then we'll talk through sales data and how you can leverage this with your deductions to get trade spend insights and information that can further help you deliver on your budgets, deliver on getting more of your product into the consumer's hands. From there, we'll talk about some profitability strategies. And if you'll allow me, then at the end, I'll give a quick overview of how TrueUp helps brands with that today. And then we will jump into Q&A. So as a reminder, Q&A, you can drop that in the chat. You'll find that within the Zoom toolbar, and we'd love to hear questions as we go. My cursor. Cool. All right. So the problem. What's the problem? So trade spend is the second largest line on the P&L. After cost of goods, it's the first largest line. And what we tend to find is about 1/3 of all trade spend is wasted on inefficiencies, bad promotions, fees and fines that maybe you didn't even plan for, and other types of things. And the challenge here is that even when we get that information, it can be hard to decipher. It's complex. There's PDFs, there's images. We get this from both distributors and retailers. And so the problem is we're left kind of flying blind, not having the info, the insights that we need to run our business and run a successful business. And so that is the problem that we're faced with. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And if I could tell a quick story, when I was with Hanes Celestial, as Lauren mentioned, early on in my career, we got to a situation where we're halfway through the year. I was managing distributors for the business and had a region. Some of the trade spend that was flowing through the distributors wasn't actually managed and controlled by me. There were other regional managers around the US that were helping to deploy those funds. And we got into a position where we were overspent with many of our distributors. I didn't have the visibility that I needed to be able to answer questions for my management team, for myself. And what ended up happening is we ended up finding that we couldn't get the insights we needed just by continuing to do the status quo. And so we leaned in, we created reporting, and we created insights to be able to understand where our dollars were being spent by retailer, by category, and by item. And this allowed us to really start to understand how we could turn the tide. And so going into the second half of the year, we were overspent and under delivering on revenue. With these insights, we were actually able to claw back and redeploy trade dollars in other areas of the business, which allowed us to drive sales through our retailers and distributors. And in fact, we actually ended up growing the business while also being able to hit our trade spend targets, which was obviously a fantastic result. And in doing so, we found out how we could create the reports that we needed in order to get the visibility, the insights we needed, not feel like we were flying blind. I didn't lose sleep as much anymore from the lack of clarity and information I had to run the business. And so my goal today is going to be to share with you what we found when we created those reports, how we do that, how we were able to do that. And in fact, my hope and my promise is to give you real tangible things that you can walk away with today and implement in your business to start getting some of these reports, insights, doing it yourself. And also on top of that, of course, trying to give you some information, some benchmarks so that as you plan, as I mentioned earlier, you'll be able to kind of plan in a similar fashion as you move into your next fiscal year or quarter. So, at the very highest level, some basics around common types of deductions. I don't think this is going to be groundbreaking, but as we head into the next page, I think it'll all kind of tie back for you. So, promotions and advertising, we tend to see this be right the first largest expense from trade spend. And this is good. I'd like to think of this as my working trade. These promotions are driving sales. They're giving you the ability to run coupons or promotions at the shelf and get some activity with displays that allows the consumer to find you as they're shopping the store, as they're kind of filling out their grocery list. And so promotions, of course, critical and what we want to make sure most of our trade dollars are going to. Of course, placement helps to drive placement on the store shelves. This can come in the form of free fills, slotting, new store openings, and then logistics. We have fines and fees, we have shortages, and then on the right, you can see spoils and fair share. I like to think of promotions and placement as really working trade that's going to help me drive my business forward. But then, of course, spoils, fair share, and logistics, fees, fines, and shortages are all going to be non-working trade that I'm going to try to reduce as much as possible to ensure that we're spending our money to drive more product through the register, which of course is good for our distributor partners, our retail partners, and the business as a whole. So when we surveyed our kind of current customers within our business, we were able to find some key trends that helps you as you think about um, some of these benchmarks. So starting at the very highest level, we see anywhere from 15 to 25% of revenue spent on trade spend and deductions. So 15 to 25% is kind of the benchmark. It's a pretty wide variance, but it depends on your category, kind of your current, kind of where you land currently within your growth trajectory. So if you're earlier on, you might be spending more on placement to get the product out onto the shelves, so on and so forth. When we look at this as it breaks down, the yellow line is how this is broken out as a percent of your revenue, and then the blue line is showing you as a percent of your total spend. And so obviously promotions and advertising is the largest. We want to continue to see that be the largest as we move forward. But surprisingly, or maybe not, the second largest is spoils. And so spoils I see as an opportunity for you as a business to be able to figure out, okay, where are we spoiling? Are we in the stores we really want to be in? Do we have a problem in the warehouse at either the retailer or the distributor that we could nip in the bud? And then underneath that, we've got placement, shortages, so on and so forth. As I mentioned early on, there's kind of two or three areas that I'm going to want to focus on. So spoils, shortages, and these fees. Now, from a deductions perspective and optimizing your spend, those three areas are going to be kind of key areas where you'll be able to lean in, understand how we can reduce those types of fees, those types of deductions, and that'll give you more money to redeploy against promotions. And as we look around, there's really, you can kind of lift the rock and find opportunities everywhere. And I just wanted to show kind of one example here. Again, trying to give you something tangible that you can walk away with. I'm sure many of you are aware of this, but this can kind of be an example that helps us dive into the next portion of the presentation. So at the top, I'm just giving you kind of two key call outs that we'll use as we move through this. So a list price, this is your cost to your direct account. That might be a retailer, but that could also be a distributor. So if you're selling this product for $3 to the distributor, that is going to be your list price. And then we've got the wholesale, and that's after a margin that they put on top of that. It's kind of the highest price that could go out to the market. And after that, like with that margin included, we're looking at about $4.62 per unit. So as we move through, you'll see why that's relevant. But we've got three key types of promotional discounts that I wanted to just highlight. First, you've got your off invoice. This is a discount off the list price to the direct customer. Again, could be a retailer, could be a distributor, whoever you're shipping directly to. And when you do an off invoice, let's say you give a 15% OI within, let's say, a period of time of a month, you'll be looking at a 45-cent per unit discount. That's going to be based on what sells into the distributor or the retailer's back door, not what sells out or what sells out of the register, of course. So this is going to be what you're giving the promotion. And of course, it should be getting passed through, but this is a kind of key thing to be thinking about as you're planning your promotions. We don't typically see an admin fee here, so that's good. And then as we move to an MCB, a manufacturer chargeback, these are discounts off the distributor's wholesale price. So that 462 I mentioned up above, and that is going to be, get rid of that. That's going to be based off of the price from the distributor to the retailer. And that does get fully passed through to the retailer. So it's not like they're charging this percentage and then pocketing. It's going to just change how that 15% shows up. So here we can see $4.62 at a 15% MCB, and that's going to be 69 cents. Again, the 69 is getting to the retailer, but it's going to be higher than the 15% on your OI. So as you think about your planning, this is kind of the key call out I wanted to give us here is that just having the knowledge that that's how that's being calculated could potentially save you money. Let's say maybe you want to do 50 cents. Now you'll know what I need to calculate off for my MCB. Scans, of course, are going to be with the retailer, usually directly, and you're going to be giving a scan, and this you'll usually give as, like, let's call it a lump sum, so maybe 45 cents. But just using this 15% as we continue down, if you're like, okay, I want to do 15% off my list price, that's off of $3, and that'll be 45 cents. And now you'll know kind of what you're giving in that case. And this is going to be based on what sells through the register. So when you see that deduction come back, it's what sold through the register to the consumer at the end of the day. And there could be admin fees here. So that's just a key call out to make sure you understand what's the retailer's admin fee. But why do I talk about this? Again, this just gives you one example. There are hundreds as we think about optimizing our trade spend, but this is one example of having that knowledge of when I'm doing my planning and I'm looking at these three different levers, what's going to be the best for me and what's going to help me drive the most revenue and the most profitability, to ensure that you're getting your product into the consumer's hands. So I hope that's helpful. Here, I'm going to jump into deduction mastery. This is from our deduction mastery framework. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is this kind of gets to the key framework that you can use in your business coming out of today. And if you follow these 5 steps, you'll be able to create your own reporting in your business to be able to start to find areas of opportunity, inefficiencies in your business, and ways that you can redeploy funds in a way that'll drive more sales and more of your product in the consumer's hands. So if we start with the top, we're talking specifically right now about your deductions. So how do we take your deductions and turn those PDFs, those documents, those, kind of hard to use details into insights that are actionable? So, with almost every account that I've seen and worked with, there's going to be a definition key. This is kind of your decoder. And you can find this in portals. You can find this with your broker partner. You can, of course, reach out to us. But with this, you're going to be able to understand based on what the deduction is coming through with an invoice number. If you bump that against their key, what the deduction was for. So my kind of call out here is, if you're not doing this today, start with one customer, pick one customer, start to get the definition key, start to decode those deductions, and that'll help you understand what the deduction was for. From there, I like to create a list of deductions, and I'll show you an example on the next page. But this is going to be, something you can download from a portal, maybe an email, and you can actually now do this decoding on a list that'll allow you to have a little more information and start to create maybe some pivots. So I like to think of this in 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months increments. That gives you enough time frame to be able to start to get some insights. And on this, we want to have invoice number, amount, date, and then you're going to start to now move to the next stage, which is step 3, deciphering these deductions and categorizing them. So I don't know if you've ever done this in your own budget for maybe groceries or looking at your bank account, but if you go through and you're like, okay, this was groceries, this was gas, that's the same idea we're thinking about here. This was for promotion, this was for a logistics fee, and that'll help you start to categorize these deductions in a report that you'll be able to leverage and get insights out of. I like to get this into a month over month report, which is why the date is really important. The date of the deduction. If you go one step further, you get bonus points if you can get the performance date from the deduction. So when the event actually ran, maybe in the store or in the warehouse versus when the deduction was taken. But with this, you've now created a report in the first three steps that allows you to maybe create that pivot table to start to get a month over month view of where your spend is going. And this allows you to be able to identify those trends and get the insights to understand how do we nip this in the bud, or continue to do more of that so that we drive more sales into the business. Lastly is just cadence as we think about how we want to do this. We do know there can be turnover in our businesses, so you want to create an SOP here, probably a share folder where you can house this report, get those key that you got from the retailer or distributor, post those in that share folder as well, and start to do this on at least a monthly basis so that you can have those insights each month. All right, so this is an example, as I mentioned. We've got our invoice number on the left, the direct account. Again, bonus points if we get the retailer from within the backup, so you can start to see where you're spending your dollars by retailer. We've got our category, our date, and our amount. So this gives us kind of the skeleton of the reporting, which then allows us to create a pivot report that can look something like this, where you can see your spend by retailer, by category, and then month over month, so you can start seeing those trends. And hopefully by now you're kind of seeing the power of how seeing this trending over time is going to help you to maximize and really find efficiencies within your trade spend and your deductions. All right, so if we move now on to making this actionable, then we're going to look at now how do you incorporate sales data with our deductions data to really turn this into trade spend data and insights. And so when I think about this, again, with our distributors or our retailers, we can usually get reporting from a sales perspective of what shipped into the store. So if we think about a distributor, what shipped from the distributor to the retailer, I'm just going to pick on them for a moment. Those reports can now give you how much you sold with your top accounts through the distributor. Let's say it's Whole Foods or Sprouts or Publix or Wegmans. This reporting can give you insights into how much you sold to the retailer. And then from there, you're able to bump that against your deductions by retailer. And now you can see at retailer X, which I'll show you on the next page, we spent this much money. And the reason I bring this up is now you've got the complete picture. Just the deduction itself is good to know by category, but how much as a percentage of my sales gives you that context to understand, are we optimized? Are we spending at the level we want to be spending with this account? And so if we look on the left-hand side of the screen, that's really what we're talking about, is getting that complete picture. So you've got the data, you've got the insights, and now you can start to optimize your trade spend with those retail accounts that are really driving the product into the consumer's baskets. And then we want to make sure that we're redeploying resources. So you might get this reporting and it allows you to see I'm underspending at this account that is actually my largest customer. So as a percentage of sales, I'm spending 10%, but at this smaller account, I'm spending 35%. That might feel lopsided to you, and you want to invest and over index with those larger accounts that are going to drive more of your product into the consumer's hands. And so this gives you the reporting and insights to be able to see that information. And then, of course, it allows you to really uncover some of these costs that maybe you weren't planning for. I mentioned fair share early on. Sometimes people aren't planning for that 1% to 2% fair share. It's not that it's hidden in that case, it's just maybe we didn't know about it. we weren't planning for it, and now we're 2% overspent. So this gives you those insights to really understand where your dollars are going, planning better in the future, and of course, where we find mistakes and errors, you're going to catch those and be able to optimize those as well. So as an output here, you can kind of see an example of what this might look like. So we're going to pick on Sprouts for a moment. This is a made up example, but you can see they're doing about 1.5 million in sales. There's an estimate of an OI down below. And then we've got our deductions broken out by category. And I can really quickly see where I'm spending my dollars, how much. I can see spoils is a pretty big number. As a percent, it's not massive, but I'm still going to lean into that a little bit. And I've got the information to be able to make some decisions from this. So this is going to be the ultimate output that you want to be able to get to, which is going to give you almost that P&L view by account so that you can start to ensure that your dollars are being spent in the way that's going to drive the most product through the register, which is good for everyone. So again, it's going to highlight some of these inefficiencies, allow you to do some ROI analysis, and improve where you're allocating your dollars. And just furthermore on this, right? Because we all want to maximize our profitability. We all want to make sure we're driving growth in our business. And by having this insight and this information, you're going to be able to do that. You'll be able to improve your negotiations, whether it's at a trade show. Now you've got some reporting to be able to see, did I give that guy a free fill at the last show? Those types of insights as you go into your next category review and you think about, what promotions do we want to do next year? This will give you the actuals to be able to make good decisions. And then, of course, making smart moves, you might find that you have a lot of logistics fees. And if you just change your way of communicating a late delivery, or maybe even you find that you got hit with a late fee, but you shouldn't have. This is going to allow you those insights and intel to be able to action that and take action in the business. So this just kind of leads me to the next piece here. And, I think hopefully the prior portions of this was helpful. It gives you something tangible to walk away with. As you know, this will still be a manual process, and you do find that you might have some people that turn over, and so even as you get this rolling, that turnover could lead to kind of a loss in some of that institutional knowledge. And so that just kind of brings us to how TrueUp can help you and come alongside a CPG brand, even at a scaling kind of growth emerging stage, to help you really manage this so you don't have to think about how I'm going to get the reporting, but instead I have the reporting. How am I going to optimize my trade spend? Are the dollars going where and how we want them to be going out, and give you that information at the click of a button. So, of course, we'll provide that clarity. It's really easy and intuitive to use platform. So we're a cloud-based platform you can access from anywhere where you have a browser. Go on, kind of get into the information, get the trade spend data. It's just really easy to use. And then no long-term contracts. We make it easy for you to get in, start utilizing it. And, we know you're going to love the information and be able to leverage it in your day-to-day. So you might be asking, okay, how do you do that? So just a couple real quick slides to show you. We're going to take that 60 page, 500 page PDF document. We digitize it. So this is the deduction. We digitize it. We're going to be bumping that off of a retailer list, your item list, and then we're going to be automatically categorizing the deductions so that when you come in, it moves from 63 pages to really what you wanted to know, 5 lines of data. On this item at this retailer, I sold this many units with this promotional scan, and here was the additional fee. Now you can start to do some of that ROI analysis, or very simply, you understand the category of the deduction, you can start to take action. We also have the trade vision portion of our platform where we're taking in the shipment data, and that shipment data is at your list cost. So what you're selling to the distributor at your list price times the amount of units you sold. And now you've got your revenue to those indirect retailers. And you can now have the power of the insight to understand how much am I spending as a trade rate percent of my total sales, and how does that break down underneath when I look by category. And of course, you can drill all the way down to the deduction and the most detail that you need to run the business. So Trade Vision is bringing together your sales and your deductions to give you reporting at the click of a button. And then from there, we also give you shipment reporting. So your sales reporting, and this is going to be by retailer. So through your distributors, by retailer, so you can see how much did I sell at the very highest level. And then when I drill in, how much did I sell by item, year over year, dollars, units, all at your list price. How am I growing? Where are we declining? How do we optimize our trade spend or optimize our go to market so that we're selling more product. Of course, there's some additional really cool velocity metrics like your points of distribution, your units per store per week that we can spin up within this reporting so that you've got all the intel you need to run your business with clarity. And then, of course, there's some daily tasks of just managing those deductions one by one, let's say, or reviewing and getting flags of, hey, this deduction you may want to take a look at, or basic just entry of the check into your accounting system. We know that one check could take a full day to enter into the system, just by trying to categorize these deductions, understand what they were for. All that work is done for you when you come in the morning, pre-categorized by DC, all the information you need to enter into your QuickBooks or ERP or whatever system you're using for accounting. And so this really streamlines and automates a lot of that work that you would be doing today manually. So thank you so much for the time. That's going to cover, I think, what we wanted to hit on here. Of course, we really hope that you can walk away with something here that's valuable in your day that you can act on and utilize immediately. And so should you have any questions, of course, put it in the Q&A below. Here's my information and Eric's should you guys want to reach out directly to us or book a demo via our Calendly. We are doing free trade spend health checks right now. So with that, it's essentially a 6-month data pull to give you information so you can see your own data in the system. And we find that to be a powerful way for you to be able to really see how is this going to help me practically in my business. So we're happy to offer that through the end of the year. If you have interest, please feel free to reach out. Lauren, back to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kyle. Well, we have a couple of questions that came through the Q&A, and I would encourage everyone to please submit your additional questions there. The first question to start, Kyle, was just the difference between promotion and fair share, and specifically how fair share is part of promotional spend. Are they mutually exclusive or more connected?
Yeah, good question. So let's start with fair share. So I don't know the exact time frame, but I'm going to just use a little history here. So about 10 to 15 years ago, retailers started saying, hey, you know, rather than send people into every single store and do resets, we're going to actually take that on ourselves. And on top of that, we're going to place your TPR tags. We're going to do different activities in the store in order to make sure that your product is well represented. And so with that, they enacted a fair share allowance. And it's essentially saying, for usually what I see is for the sales you're doing in our stores, same percentage across all brands, you're going to, be hit with this fair share percentage. of revenue as a deduction, and that's going to offset those costs to get your product cut into the shelf, hang those tags, so on and so forth. So fair share, in my mind, is non-working trade. It's not necessarily going to drive a promotion, but it is something you should be planning for. And we tend to see, you're not really going to be disputing this, or there's not a whole lot of negotiation that happens here, but we find it to be around 1.5% on average of revenue. So make sure you're planning for it.
Great. Thank you for that answer. And if this person has any follow-up questions, please drop them in the chat. Kyle, a couple of other questions. So what is the average trade spend for a CPG brand to benchmark against?
Yeah, good question. We tend to see around 15 to 25%. That's going to be dependent on the size and scale of your brand. So, you might be scaling, I think I said this early on, you might be scaling your brand and you're going to have more spend associated with that most likely. Versus if you're a little further along, then you might be closer to that 15% range. So if I were to benchmark, I'd say 20% right in the middle there is going to be a really good spot for you to be thinking about and what your competitors are likely estimating and forecasting spending.
How is TrueUp's data different from what brands typically get from their distributors?
Yeah, really good question. And I just showed a couple screenshots. What we tend to find is that the deductions or the sales data, it's really one off. You got to get into the backup. You have to try to extract information and data points from either the PDF documents, which is extremely challenging and time consuming, or for the sales data, if you want to get it at the granularity of month over month by item by retailer, that can be 45, 50 different pulls of different reports. And by the end, you're just spent and you don't have time to spin that into a report that is actionable. And so what TrueUp does, we take all that automatically, send it through our system and give you that trade spend, sales, and deduction reporting. So you have everything you need at your fingertips at the click of a button, and off you go.
We focused a lot on brands today, but the next question has to do with helping provide offerings for distributors and their retail and food service customers. Does TrueUp have services and offerings for that community as well as the brand community?
Yeah, really good question. Today we help brands with the deductions that are coming through. We're bringing clarity, but we also have partnerships on the other side where we're able to help the distributor or the retailer with both processing those deduction documents and or just helping their communities with our current platform. So there's a number of different opportunities to explore there with TrueUp, and I would say definitely we would love to talk to you and just see how we could best help you and support you in your business. My email's right here on this page if you'd like to reach out. We'd love to explore that conversation.
It's a two-way street, right? The issue around deductions is having to be dealt with by the brand, but ultimately, being able to self-organize for these partners within the supply chain to be able to communicate with brands more efficiently and effectively is it's great to hear that you're doing more work on that front and collaborating with strategic partners as well. What is your pricing and how does that work for emerging brands? And if you'd like to touch on how that works with other partners in the supply chain, happy to have you do that as well.
Awesome. Yeah. So just on that last point, couldn't agree more. And even when we think about the distributor with the retailers, they're actually usually getting the data in an even harder to work with format. So, we look at in a distributor's case, we look at them almost as like, well, why am I getting it this way? But it does originate sometimes in a way that's really challenging. So there's a lot of through that pipe, there's a lot going on. But to your question, yeah, so great question on pricing. Look, the way we look at this is it's based on the size of your business and how many distributors or retailers you would like to work with. with us on. And so it is pretty curated to a certain extent based on how big you are, how many distributors and retailers. But that being said, it's about $3.99 for the most basic base plan, and that'll scale up as you get more distributors and so on and so forth. So what we'd love to do is talk to you directly, understand kind of your needs and challenges and who you're currently working with in order to make sure that we give you the best pricing possible and make sure we can solve your problems, um, help you solve your pain points, I should say. And then finally, with different third party, we know there's a lot of maybe a broker or an accounting firm, a lot of those types of partners for brands. The way we think about it is ultimately the brand is going to get the biggest value out of this, but you as a partner to them is probably going to be crucial that you have access as well. And so we allow access to the brand's information, assuming they approve that, and then you can get access for free, no additional cost. And so we work directly with the brand, but you can get access through their approval.
Great. Just a few more questions. So what is the lowest hanging fruit for a brand to start optimizing their trade spend today?
Absolutely. I would say, the framework I showed about halfway through my presentation, I would say start there, get the key, right? And get a list of your deductions and just start to go through and categorize and start to understand where your dollars are being spent so that you can see the power of how you can optimize these dollars. Within that, I tend to think, again, I mentioned working and non-working trade. Working is going to be promotions, driving sales, activities that are going to drive more of your product into the consumer's hands versus non-working trade. This could be spoils or fees. I would then also say those non-working trade dollars where you can really get insights and lean into that, that's going to be your lowest hanging fruit to ensuring that you're spending those dollars on revenue driving activities. So once you do that categorization, lean into those fees, fines, spoils, etc., and try to see what you can do to reduce your expenses in that area. And now you can put that money directly towards sales driving activities.
Well, and the last question is just about demos. How do people sign up for demos? How can they start understanding the impact to their financial sort of plan and realize the benefit that TrueUp can produce for them?
Yeah, great question. So right on this screen, we've got our Calendly. Of course, you can go to our website, TrueUp, spelled TREWUP.com. We've got a book a demo there. And again, you have our emails here, myself and Eric. Please feel free to reach out, and we're doing free trade spend health checks. So if you have business with KE or UNFI, today, we can spin up some reporting. We can do a demo with your information and data, and that'll help you really see how this can help you just automate what's already a manual, tedious process, get the insights you need. So I'd encourage you to reach out. We'd love to talk to you and just see if we can help.
Well, and I'll invite you, Kyle, to just share any sort of, learnings that you've had with regard to the demos, because I know for some of the clients that you've worked with very quickly, they're able to realize savings. So is there a quick reference or accomplishment that you'd like to share with attendees that really demonstrates the effectiveness of the TrueUp platform?
Yeah, it's a good call. So just generally speaking, the cool thing about the trade spend health check is that our system automatically flags deductions that maybe have the wrong brand or wrong UPC. And so on day one, just in the demo, we can bring to you those flags so you can kind of see what the system's going to help you with. And on our website, we've got a case study with Sonoma Creamery where we were able to help them identify through a flag. So without them having to do any work, come in and see $50,000 worth of deductions that were not for them and were in fact a mistake. I believe it was an honest mistake for a different brand, but they were able to now take an action, make sure it wasn't associated to them. Of course, for the distributor, they moved it over to the correct brand. And so win-win all around, but you can just see the power of getting that information and having it automated so that you don't have to sift through thousands and thousands of pages. The distributor wasn't out anything. The brand was able to make sure that their money is going towards revenue driving activities. And so that is something we can do within that demo alone.
Excellent. Well, it sort of speaks for itself. That's a great case study. Would encourage people to read about that as well as the other ones that you have listed on your website. And well, those are all the questions that we have today from our audience here, Kyle. So thank you very much for your time. For those of you on the call, please feel free to reach out to us if we can help to connect you to Kyle. We'd be happy to do that, and look forward to hearing from all of you, and continue to wish you great success, Kyle, in the year ahead. So thank you all for attending, and look forward to hearing from you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. Thanks all. Have a good one.
Take care. Bye-bye.